Welcome to the On Brand Podcast, the show where we dive into branding, marketing, and living life on brand. I'm your host, Jessica Carr, a marketing strategist with over a decade of experience helping businesses of all sizes amplify their impact and connect with their audience. Together, we'll explore actionable strategies, inspiring stories, and the latest trends to elevate your business and personal brand. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a creative, or someone ready to make bold moves, you're in the right place. Let's do this. This week, I want to talk about planning your marketing strategy for 2025. And this is actually the second part. Last week, I had part one, which was essentially just evaluating where you are currently with your marketing efforts and where you want to go with your business and what your business goals are. Because we can't really plan for business goals or like create any strategy if we don't know where you want to take your business this year. You have to evaluate that first. And then we also have to go back and reevaluate where your audience is, who your competitors are, who's your existing competitors that you know of. Are there any new competitors on the market? What are they all doing? I like to look back at previous year's performance as well to see what worked and what didn't, so we can see if we want to continue with that strategy or if we want to shake things up for the next year. So if you haven't done that already, go back and listen to my previous episode. I also have a blog post on it on my website, jessicacarco.com. Underneath the resources and articles, there's going to be a blog post that kind of outlines it as well if you can't listen to the podcast or don't want to. I also have some short form videos out there about it. If you go back and do that if you haven't already, and after that, then we can start on this next step, which the next step is going to be actually creating the plan and actually creating the strategy for this year. So first, before you can decide when and where you want to do things, you have to start with your end goal in mind. That goes back to your plans for this year, but it's a little different. I want you to think of tangible things that you want to do in your business or tangible goals that you want to achieve. Because like I mentioned, I think last week, I might have mentioned it in the episode. I know I mentioned it in LinkedIn that you can't really grow what you're not measuring, right? And same kind of thing, you can't really grow or try to reach a goal if you don't have a goal. So some ideas with some goals that you can have is you want to grow an account by X amount of followers, or you want to bring in X amount of revenue, or whatever that goal is. Like put an actual number on it, and then you can kind of reverse engineer it a little bit from there. So I always like to say to give yourself an attainable goal or a goal you think is obtainable. So for instance, for me, I just barely started my YouTube channel. It's a little unrealistic to think that I can get like 100,000 followers in 3 months. I mean, anything can happen. The sky's the limit, of course, but that's unrealistic in my opinion. And you want to have a realistic goal because it's going to help you be motivated to keep working towards that goal. It's a human psychology thing with that one. If you're not close to hitting that big goal, you're going to lose momentum and steam. You're going to feel discouraged. So give yourself like smaller goals that you can work towards. It's kind of that SMART goal setting mentality, where if you have something that's obtainable or easy to obtain and you get there sooner than you imagined, great, that's amazing. Then we create the next goal from that. But always start with something that's a little bit more obtainable. But I want to give an example. So let's say that you want to bring in like $500,000 on Q1 of this year, right? In the first 3 months. Well, that is just under $167,000 per month. And that is $41,750 a week. So that is going to be $8,350 per day in a 5-day period. So I'm just going based off work days. So with that example, with that large of a goal, you can see how we kind of reverse engineer it and make it a little bit more obtainable. Now, that might seem like a really big number for, some businesses. If they're smaller, just getting started, that's okay. That can be a larger goal later on. But I just wanted to give that as an example of how you can reverse engineer it. But once you have reverse engineer it, I want you to think about what products or offers you can sell in order to reach that financial goal. So, for example, if you have a digital product that you sell for like $250, you need to sell 668 of those every month to make that goal. So, when you can kind of play around with the numbers like that, it makes it a lot easier and you're less discouraged because you can actually like wrap your mind around it. So now that you have that like obtainable goal, you can actually start planning for it now with your marketing. So what you're going to do next is you're going to take out a calendar for the year and you're going to map out the goals that you have. So you're going to put a date on product launches, service offerings, anything that you might have coming up. You can do things that are business or industry specific with this. Do you have any products or services that you can have campaigns for, such as like Valentine's Day or Mother's Day or Father's Day? You're going to write those things on the calendar. Another example is products or retail or e-commerce businesses that have a spring, summer, and fall, winter drop. When are you going to drop those products for those spring, summer, fall, winter drops? Another thing to consider is, do you want to sell a digital product or service or anything around your personal calendar? Do you have any upcoming events or vacations or any birthday celebrations, holiday plans, anything like that? You might not want to do a big campaign around those events. So you can kind of plan out when you're going to do those different initiatives and campaigns around your personal calendar as well. Another factor to consider is also your target audience and their mindset. So if you have a product, let's use, for instance, like Pandora, for example, the jeweler, they do really well around Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, big holidays like that. They always have lines out their doors for those different holiday seasons, right? And so the end user or the target audience is either going to be women or people who are shopping for the women in their lives. So that's something to keep in mind too, is the mentality behind your target audience. Are they likely to be buying something around a holiday? So then that's when you might want to do your new product launch or drop, around when you're going to see a big increase in sales. Now, if you are a B2B business, which means you are a business to business product, company, service, whatever. So for me, I am a B2B business, which means I work with brands on their marketing strategy. So for me, the beginning of the year is going to be a good opportune time to start promoting or putting myself out there, whatever else, hence why I'm doing this podcast at the beginning of the year. So I can start getting my name out there and whatever else to work with businesses. Or even in a lot of companies, their Q1 might start in July. And so May, June, July is going to be another time for me to kind of ramp up my efforts there. I don't work with a lot of B2C companies, and October through December is like the Super Bowl for B2C brands. So they're not going to be looking for a new strategy anyways. They're not going to be looking for someone with my services because they've already planned it out. And then a lot of B2B companies will slow down during that time as well. They don't really want to initiate anything new either, or they're not really in that mindset. If they're smart, they will be, because they're planning ahead of Q1 for the fall, like the next year. But for the majority of these businesses I interact with, they are focused on spending time, slowing down, or spending time with their family, slowing down for the holidays. So it's not really the best time for me to be like trying to initiate something new or do new campaigns or new services. Now, I can do something that will kind of prep them for thinking about January the next year, but it's not necessarily the opportune time for me and my business. So just using that as an example. So after you've mapped out your campaigns and put a date to them, you're going to start thinking of backwards from that and when you should start actually doing the campaign. So let's go back to our Valentine's Day Pandora example. So Pandora is likely dropping hints or at least doing their Valentine's campaign now in January versus waiting until like the last minute, because they want to build up awareness and they want to show people, hey, this is a product that you should consider. You've seen this at the grocery store or even somewhere like Target. They don't have their Christmas, New Year's things up anymore. They have, in January when I'm recording this, they have their Valentine's Day things already up. They have their chocolates, they have their chocolate boxes, roses, all of those things are out and ready for Valentine's Day because that's the next big holiday. There's a lot of discourse every year about when is it too soon to start selling Halloween decor or even Christmas decor. So we've seen Halloween decor as early as, I think it was June last year that we saw Halloween decor like being put out, which was in my mind crazy, but I don't own a Halloween store or a Halloween brand, so I'm going to let them use their own insights that they've learned over the years of when the appropriate time is to sell Halloween decor. But a lot of people are into it. But this is important to do for the entire year up front because, or for example, if you have a brand that sells anything that could do with cold weather or the snow, and you are planning on releasing that product for next year or Christmas of 2026, for instance, you are actually going to do your product photography and your videography and everything now in January of 2025 because you need snow. It's going to be too late to promote that product in October if it hasn't snowed yet and it's a snow or cold weather product. But this goes for anything. If you're running events, if you have product launches, campaigns, or anything, you are going to actually prep for that way far in advance than actually when you start the campaign. So this is part of the whole campaign process. We are going to start the campaign on this date for the event or sale or holiday or whatever it is on X date. But you have to think way before that and say, okay, this is when the campaign starts. When do we need to have the actual visuals done for this campaign if we're using visuals for a campaign, which I recommend you do? When are we going to start reviewing, if you're doing advertising, when are we reviewing the ad copy? What organic strategies are we doing leading up to this campaign if you're doing a organic versus paid or both, a multifaceted strategy that way? Once again, this is extremely industry, customer, or product or service specific. It's really hard for me to kind of nail down the specifics because there's so many variables with different types of products or businesses or industries. And so if you're looking for a little bit more 101 to help you with your specific needs, there is an option to book a discovery call with me on my website, and I'm happy to walk through some of these things with you and see if there's any way I can help you a little bit more specifically that way. But for this podcast, I have to be pretty broad in general because I know that there's a variety of different businesses that are going to be listening to this. Now, after you've mapped that out and you've mapped out your dates and you understand, when you need to start the campaigns and all of those things we just talked about, you are going to create your content strategy for at least the next quarter. I'm not saying you have to do your content strategy for the entire year right now. You should have some general ideas about what topics, themes, products, whatever are going around or happening year round, but you're going to get more specific each quarter. And the reason for that is because things change so quickly. For instance, right now, we are seeing, as of the end of January, a huge shift in our social media landscape, with TikTok being banned for 12 hours or whatever it is, and the algorithm changing. And it's a very volatile situation with the social media landscape at the moment. And so it would not be beneficial to plan out a detailed campaign for the entire year because things shift and move so quickly. You would have to redo it all anyways once you figured out what your new strategy was. Versus if you do it in detail for just the next quarter or next 3 months, it's not like you're repeating the work over and over again, and you can be a lot more adaptable and you can pivot and shift faster. But some considerations you need to have is for your creating your content strategy is what type of content will educate and entertain your audience. People go to the internet for two reasons: to be informed or to be entertained. So you have to do one or both in a lot of cases. That's actually the best thing you can do is if you can figure out how to inform and entertain your audience at the same time, you have the golden ticket. And that's actually why a lot of content creators do so well, is because they understand that. Next, you're also going to think about what problems do people have and how do you solve them. So I'm going to use my own business or myself as an example again. So for instance, this podcast, I work with women entrepreneurs primarily, or at least that's who I want to be my target audience. So I'm creating content that is helping you to solve the problem and promote and market your business. So what might be on your mind right now is how I take my business to the next level this year. How can I promote my business this year? How do I build my brand, etc.? So I'm creating this podcast right now to help you map out your strategy for this year, knowing that that might be your pain point at this moment in time at the beginning of 2025 when you're thinking about your business growing this year. So the goal is either to have you book a discovery call with me to work one-on-one together, or offer you a digital product or course or something to help you along that process. So with that being said, I do have a free PDF download that you can take from the show notes or the description. The link will be to that free PDF download where it will help you map out the strategy that I'm putting out in this podcast episode. Lastly, we are going to plan out your implementation, which means how will you execute your plan? Will you create more long format content? Will you create more engaging content for social media? Are you creating landing pages for each of your services and running ads to those landing pages? So you want to write down the actions you need to take to actually implement your strategy. And you need to create these goals and write them down so you aren't looking at your computer screen blankly when you're trying to promote your business. If you have an action plan, you are more likely to follow through with it and reach your goals. Ask me how I know. Now, this is just the basic run through of how to create your strategy for this year. Of course, I mentioned a lot of things that I need to go more in depth on, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to be able to in this podcast episode. I will be releasing more episodes in the coming weeks on specific strategies or specific things I mentioned to help you grow your business this year more and how to create effective marketing campaigns to help you reach your business goals and help you serve the people that you are meant to serve with your business. Because remember, entrepreneurship is a process of finding a solution to someone's pain. Marketing is helping people find the solution to their pain. That is my mindset and my approach to marketing. And I feel like that's how you do marketing ethically. So, with that in mind, I'm going to be creating more content for you soon. I'm going to be creating more YouTube videos, more short form content, and also more podcast episodes, of course. So, be sure to tune in for more. Download the PDF guide that I mentioned. That's going to be in the show notes or the description, and map out your strategy for this year. Depending on what happens here in the near future, for my next week's episode, I may be diving into what's happening with TikTok right now. I'm kind of letting it play out a little bit more because things are so uncertain. So, anyways, you tune in for that potentially next week. If I don't talk about that, I'll talk about another really good topic, I promise. Thank you for listening to the On Brand podcast. If you found today's episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Until next time, keep amplifying your impact and living on brand.